Switzerland is probably one of the greatest synonyms for neutrality. Swiss neutrality became world-famous primarily due to its position during the two world wars and the Cold War. But how did Switzerland become neutral, and how was it able to maintain this status despite major unrest and wars in Europe? The first steps towards neutrality were taken in 1515, the year in which the Swiss Confederation suffered a devastating loss against the French. As a result, the Confederation ended its expansionist policy and tried to stay out of all future conflicts. However, this did not mean that the Swiss stopped fighting. The Swiss were known throughout Europe for their fighting spirit, and many institutions and royal houses hired them as mercenaries. The best-known mercenary troop is probably the Pope's Swiss Guard in Rome, which is still in service today. Swiss troops therefore fought mainly as mercenaries, although the state tried to stay out of its European neighbors' wars as far as possible. However, Switzerland's neutrality as we know it today only developed with the Napoleonic Wars. Despite signing several peace treaties with the French, Switzerland was invaded by France in 1798 and later became a vassal state of Napoleon Bonaparte. It was only after Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo that this status was ended and the future status of Switzerland was negotiated at the Congress of Vienna in 1814–1815. In the meantime, a neutral Switzerland appeared to be the most sensible solution for all the major powers involved. This was mainly due to the fact that each major power had its own plans for the future of Switzerland, making it impossible to reach a sensible agreement. Austria, for example, would have liked to rule Switzerland as a satellite state. France wanted to keep its vassal, and Prussia wanted to integrate Switzerland into the German Confederation. In the end, a compromise was reached, a neutral Switzerland as a buffer zone between the great powers. This was also very convenient for the Swiss inhabitants, who saw neutrality as the best means of countering the expansionist plans of their neighbors. In the future, however, this neutrality was repeatedly put to the test. For example, during the First World War, even though it was threatened from all sides, it managed to remain strictly neutral, meaning that it did not take part in any military actions before, during, or after the war, nor did it take sides with any of the warring parties. Nevertheless, the country mobilized its army at the borders in case a neighbor invaded the country. Both sides had developed plans to invade enemy territory via Switzerland. The French army developed a plan to invade southern Germany through Switzerland. The German General Staff had also originally drawn up a plan to march into France via Switzerland instead of Belgium. However, both plans were rejected, which is why Switzerland was able to stay out of the war. After the war, the newly founded League of Nations officially recognized Swiss neutrality, which is why the headquarters of the League of Nations was established in Geneva. The United Nations, the successor to the League of Nations, still has its headquarters in Geneva today, alongside New York. However, the greatest challenge came during the Second World War. Here, too, Switzerland managed to largely maintain its neutrality despite its strategic position. Particularly after the annexation of Austria, Switzerland feared that it too would be incorporated into the German Reich. The Swiss government therefore ordered general mobilization and border troops were deployed. At times, the country was completely surrounded by Axis forces and the Germans repeatedly violated Swiss airspace and sent saboteurs, but no invasion took place. After the end of the war, the victorious powers accused Switzerland of economic cooperation with the National Socialists, as many transactions of the German Reichsbank were processed via the Swiss banking system and trade with the German Reich continued. After the Second World War, Switzerland took a more active position in international affairs. It continued to promote humanitarian initiatives and often acted as a mediator, but remained strictly neutral in military matters. For example, it has not joined NATO or the EU. Another important reason for Swiss neutrality is that it is one of the foundations of national identity. Unlike in most other countries, this is not based on ethnic origin, religion, or language. It has 4 official languages, for example, but on intercultural factors. The belief in direct democracy, the willingness to compromise, and also neutrality are important cornerstones of the Swiss national identity. The small Alpine country has thus pursued a policy of neutrality for several centuries. But it is not the only neutral country in the world. Ireland and Costa Rica, for example, pursue the same foreign policy, and neighboring Austria has also been striving for a neutral stance, albeit enforced, since the Second World War. I have already made a video about this, check it out here. If you like this video, subscribe to this channel now so you don't miss any more in the future. If you want to support us further, you can become a channel member. Thanks for watching.